You and I had this conversation
Yeah.
about reinventing myself, and I felt like when I reinvented myself, that burnout kind of went away.
Hmm.
I feel like I reinvented myself, but I also reinvented the sport for myself and what it meant to me. And so I didn't really deal with like the whole, um, the sport is my identity, mostly because I had to deal with that as I was going through it, versus like when it went away.
Welcome to Limitless Minds, the podcast where curiosity meets greatness. Each week, co-hosts DJ Eitzen and Harry Wilson sit down with some of the most exceptional individuals across sports, business, and beyond. From world-class athletes and peak performance coaches to visionary CEOs, entrepreneurs, and influential authors, they dive deep into the stories and strategies that drive extraordinary success. If you're ready to discover what it takes to be truly limitless and push beyond your own limits, you're in the right place.
All right. Today's guest isn't just any guest. She's family, literally my younger sister. Anna Wilson is a former Stanford basketball standout, a national champion, and one of the toughest defenders to play for the Cardinal in history. Over 160 games, she helped lead Stanford to a national title in 2021 and was named Pac-12 Co-Defensive Player of the Year. But her journey is not just about basketball. From battling adversity, multiple injuries, personal loss, navigating the pressures of elite competition, Anna has developed a mindset rooted in resilience and purpose. Today, we'll dive into her story, her take on mental fitness, NIL, and college athletics, and life beyond the game. Enjoy. All right, guys, I'm excited. I got little sis on the Limitless Minds podcast, July 12th, 1997. She stole my birthday from me. We have the same birthday, 14 years apart. And so we've had a special connection ever since. So I'm excited to, share some of Anna's journey with with our listeners. You know what I mean? She's got a pretty cool background. As I mentioned in the bio, she's was a world class athlete. As a basketball player, played for one of the most storied organizations in women's athletics in Stanford Cardinal. Played a lot of games, dude. Like, 160 is a lot of games.
That's crazy.
So um, I think that might be the most in Stanford women's basketball history. I think it's fourth most in NCAA history. So that's pretty amazing. What amazing accomplishment. So anyway, very proud of Anna. And but Anna, so where are you at? Like, where are you living now? Where are you like? Tell people what you're up to these days.
Yeah, I'm living in LA. So I'm living in Los Angeles right now. And this is like my first time really like kind of being in a city, by myself, not, with any family or anything like that. So, it's obviously it's a new experience, but I love it so far. It's been really awesome. Definitely something new, but I enjoy it a lot.
Nice.
That's cool.
Knowing your experience, your background, the things you've been through, I'm really eager to explore kind of what you've garnered from your athletic experience and beyond, right? Relative to like mental fitness, mental health,
Yeah.
and a little bit of like that story, right? So I'd love to know a little bit about, like, maybe my first question is like, and we're just gonna get right into it. Like, what's one mental skill that you wish that you knew or developed sooner? As a younger athlete, younger student athlete, younger woman. Like, is there anything right off the bat that you wish that you had known, when you were younger?
Yeah, I think a mental skill that I wish that I knew when I was younger was just that it's okay for things to take time, for things to kind of unravel as they will, and not feeling like I need to be on a timetable for anything to work out, or how it should work out or whatever. I feel like, you mentioned the 160 games. Obviously that didn't come in the first, you know, year of me playing, college sports. It definitely came with being comfortable with things taking a lot of time, and sacrificing really a lot, to get to that point. And honestly, like when things take time, a lot of times it like kind of that slow cooking thing,
Yeah.
is definitely makes everything more worthwhile. Because you understand that it took a really long process. That was the same thing for like, my academically, like, I did film photography and everything. And I enjoyed that process even more because in order to get a really great picture, it took a really long time for it to develop and everything. So, uh, that was kind of like my college experience. Really, was everything took some time to develop, in order for it to be like really great. So,
Yeah.
um, so
Yeah.
yeah,
Great analogy. That's a really great
yeah,
analogy. I often think too when I heard 160 games, I was like, that's crazy. That's what a great accomplishment. I think too of like what happened before that, like how you got prepared for that 160 games. Grade school, middle school, high school. Tell us a little bit about that journey, and when did you really start to love the game?
yeah. Or really early on, I was playing, a bunch of different sports, but basketball was definitely the sport that I loved the most. It was a sport that I was most connected to, with my dad and everything, our dad and everything. And so I think I just really grew to love it just because it was my escape, a lot as I was growing up. It was the thing that I did in order to feel like, I was a part of something that meant something, being a
Mm,
part of teams and everything. Um, I wish that I played more sports, growing up outside of basketball, but I really started to focus on basketball, especially like in middle school when I saw that there was like a real opportunity to like, grab a hold of there, and everything. So I ended up, once I found out that I was pretty decent at basketball, I kind of just stuck with it too. So, that obviously really helps as well. So
Yeah. Well, actually, I was going
that's
to ask you
great.
about that because, knowing that you really focused on one sport, whereas your older brothers played like all the stuff, right?
yeah,
Like, what's your take for you kids or even parents that are listening to this that have kids that are playing multiple things or only specializing? Like, what's your philosophy or take on specialization over multiple sport training?
yeah. I mean, looking back, I definitely think that playing as many sports as you possibly can, and not even just sports, but being in as many activities as possible. I think that if you identify something that you love, finding ways of building onto that through the other sports that you are playing,
Mm,
figuring out how I can become a better basketball player by doing other things as well. Obviously, there's some aspects of Russell's game that are really, really strong because he played other sports that helped, bring that extra, experience to, his game and everything. So, I mean, I think for me, like being able to understand people, definitely comes from, playing with a diverse group of people as well. So, I think that's why I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty comfortable walking into rooms, that are different and, being able to be kind of a shapeshifter when walking into rooms because I've been on a multitude of teams. Even though I didn't play, a bunch of different sports, I played on so many different teams growing up. I
Yeah.
played USA, I played AAU, I played high school, middle school, everything. So, I got to know a lot of different personalities throughout my experience. So,
is
yeah,
that Boo Williams down there, Harry?
yeah.
Boo Williams?
You played Boo Williams, didn't you? Is that what you
Yeah, I
played?
played I played Boo Williams, but for a
Oh,
really
did
long
you?
time I
That's
wasn't playing on Boo. I was playing on, a non-Nike, team. I really developed a lot of my time through that. So yeah.
that's
Oh,
cool.
Boo Williams, man. Golly.
Yeah.
Shout out
The
to Boo.
AAU
Shout out to Boo
circuit. Yeah,
Williams,
shout out to Boo Williams, man.
These messages sponsored by Boo Williams Basketball. Did you ever feel like you were experiencing any burnout from basketball, and like, just constantly doing, the kind of just the same thing over and over again, or ultimately, and we'll talk a little bit about kind of post-career, like an identity, right? Do you feel like there's
Yeah.
any burnout or identity challenges when you just kind of like define yourself as a basketball player?
Um, no, I mean, I think I fortunately didn't experience a lot of burnout. I think that because I played on so many different teams, everything was fresh, like being able to travel, the world and play USA, being able to play high school, being able to play AAU gave me so many different experiences. So I think because of that, I think also it was just like my passion for it. Now I do think that like when I got injured and when I had to deal with that, and that was kind of like my first time dealing with like real adversity throughout my sport. I think that's when I probably started to experience like, am I burning out or am I just like, do I just need to kind of get over this hump? And Harry, you and I had this
Yeah.
conversation about reinventing myself, and I felt like when I reinvented myself, that burnout kind of went away.
Hmm.
Um, so I feel like I reinvented myself, but I also reinvented the sport for myself and what it meant to me. So I didn't really deal with like the whole, um, the sport is my identity, mostly because I had to deal with that as I was going through it,
Mm,
versus like when it went away.
Yeah.
Um, so I feel like I was able to walk away from college sports as well in a healthier manner, because I had kind of gone through the fact that I might lose the sport altogether
Yeah.
um, when I was kind of earlier on. So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
When you
I kind of feel like burnout, is like a candle, right? Like, when you're winning, you know what I mean? And like the embers are always burning, right? When you're winning, meaning like obviously winning games, but also just kind of having success. You don't see a lot of individuals that are having success burn out, right? It's people that are through
yeah,
like
yeah,
prolonged struggles that they can't endure, and then burnout shows up, right? So like, I just wonder how much success or winning or, you know it like really dictates burnout for people, or is it just doing the same thing too long.
yeah. I think burnout is definitely it's definitely a kind of friction. I think also success is also friction too. I think both of them, they just rub differently,
Hmm.
So I think that for me, even when I was doing really well and I was, especially in the latter part of my career, there was still friction there because, like,
Hmm.
you want to keep winning, you want to keep doing really well, and that comes with a level of pressure that a burnout also comes with.
Yeah.
So it's just different. It's kind of like stress. Like there's good stress and bad stress.
Yeah.
I was really just thinking about like how the difference between competing and then loving a sport. You mentioned that you love basketball and really love it. Do you love the sport more, or do you love competing more? What would you say when you
Definitely,
look at
I
those two
definitely
things?
love competing more. Yeah, I mean, I love basketball. I love watching it. Like I love watching college. I love watching, pro basketball. I think, a lot of times when I'm watching it, I'm usually pretty critical of it.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
I do think that like for me, like I really miss practice more than I miss like playing games. I miss like the that whole energy. I miss like showing up in practice and not having drills that like obviously we had over and over again, did the same drills for like 6 years, right? But I think that a lot of times, like, it was just kind of like going into practice and just competing with, I had the best athletes on my team every year.
Yeah,
So, regardless if we won the national championship or not, or went to the final four or not, I still had the best players on my team because they wanted to compete at a really high level. And so,
yeah.
I thought that that was like the best part of my career, honestly, was practice. And I tried to come to practice every day and give it 110%. So, um, yeah, that's where I had my most fun. So,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
yeah, I asked that too because just watching you play, it's like the thing that I saw that really stood out is the way you play defense and how much energy and effort you put into your D. And it's just like you don't see a lot of players doing that. That's not it's not a sexy thing. It's not a thing that people talk a lot about on, talk radio shows, but it was something that you really took pride in. And I often wondered when watching you play, was that something just from a love of basketball or just a sheer competitiveness that you had and have? So that's the genesis of that question. But I appreciate you sharing that.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think on my team, I knew that that was the one thing that was going to separate me from everyone else on my team. I think that we had great defensive players, but I think that it was just more of like I knew that defense was my hook on our team.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't 6'6" like Cameron or 6'5",
Mm-hmm.
however tall she is, you
Mm-hmm.
know, um, or Lexi, I didn't have her length as a guard or anything like that. But I knew that I was very quick. I understood defensive schemes really well. And I understood like if I could learn someone else's tendencies that I could utilize them in the game really, really well. And that's what at Stanford that's what we were really keen on, was understanding people's tendencies, knowing people's plays. We'd come down the court, we'd call out the other team's plays, and like especially UCLA. Obviously they're not on the team right now. And Craig Plus is a good friend, but we knew their plays like down pat. um, and so that was like super fun for me. Understanding that like some people like to go left, some like Ari McDonald, she loved going left, loved going downhill left. She loved shooting going to the right. And so being able to understand, like, especially when I've been playing there for so long, it became easier as I went through because I had been watching the same plays over and over and over again. Uh, and so defense was just something that I knew that I could be out there on the court for however long as I gave energy to giving on defense, So,
Yeah.
uh, so yeah,
Yeah.
there was one game, we were playing Washington State, and Chara was pretty much like, if she doesn't score, you stay in the game. If she takes shots, that's one thing, but if she's making shots, that's a whole different thing. So she could make a shot, but if she was making continuous shots or doing what she wanted on offense, then I'd come out. So I pretty much played the entire game because I was like, I'm not letting her do what she likes to do. So, so yeah,
I love
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so
yeah,
great.
No doubt. I mean, like it was fun watching you kind of dictate games from a defensive side of the ball. In many cases, like you were playing the top, especially if they were a guard or even a wing player, you were guarding that girl, right? I don't care if she was 6'1", 6'2", but if she was a guard or a wing player, like, and she was a scorer, Anna Wilson was guarding her. It was pretty fun. So there'd
Every
be times
time.
where like, it was like if you had a Sunday game, there'd be times I have a split screen. I'd be watching Russell play and Anna play at the same time. Do you know how stressful that is for me? And you've seen me, Anna, in game days. Like I'm stressed, right? So
yeah,
yeah, so very double the stress. You know what I mean?
Times two, right?
But
That's
double the
right.
fun. But double the fun when we get dubs. You know what
They
I
were
mean?
doing a lot of winning, a lot of
Yeah,
winning.
a lot of winning. But so like, I wanted to go back to a big topic of like from a diversity perspective. You mentioned injuries, right? And I know that's especially the early part of your career, that was a big kind of narrative for you, right? And it started before you even got to Stanford, right? So
yeah,
you moved out from Virginia to Bellevue, Washington, to go play for the Bellevue team, and you had a great squad. I think they already had a really good squad. And you joined and like turned it to another level, right? Y'all win state championship, undefeated, I believe, and you became a McDonald's All-American, right? So it kind of seemed like that whole plan to get you out there was like successful, right? You know what I mean?
mhm,
And then
yeah,
as McDonald's All-American, I think we were in Chicago. I think we all came to see the game. I think DJ joined us actually.
Yeah, I was there. I
That
sure
week,
was.
that week you sustained an injury, right? And that was kind
mhm.
of the beginning of a couple of years of that challenge, or at least a year or so of that challenge. Tell us a little bit about that and what happened, and
Yeah,
like what kind of happened after that.
yeah, we were going through a walkthrough. I gotten hit in the head, and that wasn't like necessarily my first concussion or first like brain trauma at the time. And I've gone to McDonald's All American, kind of dealt with that. When I got back, I was back in class, and I was really struggling with like seeing numbers on on the whiteboard. And then I was at the end of my high school career because like McDonald's is like in spring. Jordan Brand Classic is in the spring. So I was like taking, my last test, I obviously passed everything, but then I was then immediately going into classes at Stanford and then workouts at Stanford, and I couldn't get through a workout, which is like, this is like the first time in my life that like I'm getting through a workout and like I'm not feeling great. Like I'm feeling, obviously the workouts were hard, but like I just could not like see properly. I was having really a hard time with my vision, memory, and everything. And so I went to go get some tests done, and then my scans were all over the place. I had MRIs done, CAT scans. I did like vision tests, everything. I was failing everything. I met with a doctor. My first doctor's visit, they were like, "We shouldn't play contact sports ever again." My freshman
Yeah.
year,
Yeah.
and so they pretty much were just like, you're not gonna play here at least. Because Stanford's like super strict, which obviously is super grateful for all of that, honestly. I went to go see a brain neurologist out of Florida. And so went to a neuro rehabilitation center for like a week, 2 weeks, and came back and passed all the tests. But then at that point, once I passed the test, I'm super eager to, get out there. So I was training really hard. Because of that, I got stress fractures in my foot. So my calcaneus, I sustained a stress fracture that was pretty serious. And the day that I realized I had the stress fracture at a game, and I was crawling in my hotel room because my mom was there, but I was crawling in the hotel room because I could not walk on my foot. And I was trying to like get all my stuff together, get to the gym, immediately put on a boot, went through the workout, like the warm up workout. And I was like, I can't run. Like I can't walk. So I was in a boot for an extended period of time. And then I got another one in my fourth and fifth metatarsal on my other foot. Because of the stress that I was getting from having the stress fracture, the compensation that was happening. hurt my other foot. So
Mm.
I ended up just getting 2 back-to-back stress fractures, which takes some time to heal. Um, and then I was like, I think I want to quit. I don't think I want to play college sports anymore.
Yeah.
It's too difficult. I remember crying in the tunnel, the Pac-12 tournament. So I was like, I just can't do this. I was like, I'm working so hard to come back, and nothing's working. Um, and so I had lots of conversations with people, and I had a lot of friction with Tara and the assistant Kate for a second there. But I grew a lot throughout that experience, and I just kind of realized a lot of the things that were more important than just playing. And I learned a lot about taking care of myself and my body and everything that I still implement, today. So,
Yeah.
um,
Good
so
for
yeah, I
you.
mean, that experience was truly one of a kind. And that's why I think that 160 games means a lot to me, because it went from you should never play again to I played the fourth most ever in NCAA history. So,
Yeah.
That's
uh,
incredible.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's a
That's
good
without
context there
playing,
because
it
yeah,
is.
yeah, because I mean that sometimes I don't even think about that because I brag about you don't know how much I brag about how many games you played in college, but with the context of the injuries that you played. Now, of course, you had an extra year or two because of COVID and the injury, but like still, like we told
yeah. I
that.
didn't play my first and second year though,
Right.
like at all,
Exactly.
really.
Exactly.
Wow.
And well, except for there was one game that I remember. You have to tell me if it was freshman, like the first or second year against Ohio State. I think it's
Yeah,
there.
Ohio State. I played Yale, Ohio State. Yeah,
But I mean,
no rhythm, no
right.
consistency.
But
Yeah.
there was a game though against
Um,
Ohio State specifically. I think it was early in your career where you came off the bench, I think, and it was a late game. It was like because it was 7 o'clock Pacific, it's 10 o'clock Eastern time, and I would listen to your games like late night, like in the bed, just kind of listening, and I fell asleep, and I wake up and like the announcer's like Anna Wilson with another three, and I wake up like what's going on? I'm getting all these texts from mom and family like you had like 7 threes that game, I think something like that,
yeah.
whatever it was, and
Yep.
like
Seven
that was
threes.
yeah, that was dope. So it was like,
Yeah,
and that was
you had a lot of fans out here, man. You had a lot of fans and folks watching. And I know my girls loved watching Stanford basketball when you were playing. And yeah, we definitely appreciate that. I also you mentioned the McDonald's All American game. I was really excited to come watch you play. Obviously, it didn't work out because of the injury and the concussion. But we sat next to Sabrina Ionescu's parents, and that was kind of that. I think that was that game where that I think it went to overtime. Was she on your team or was she on the opposite team for that
That
game? Do you?
McDonald's All American. She was on my
Yeah, the
team.
McDonald's. She was on your team. Yeah, so it went
Yeah.
into overtime, and at that point, I don't even think she was committed.
So,
But that's the one thing I do remember from that game.
yeah.
yeah,
But it was
she balled out in that game. I think she was MVP
yeah,
of that game.
Yeah.
she balled. She
Yeah.
balled.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, like relative to like that journey, that story arc of injuries to like health, success, national championships and Final Fours, like how did some of your mental strategies and mental health game, like how did that evolve, right? Because you talked about the physical health and like learning how to take care of your body. Like how did you learn how to take care of like your mind and spirit part of it?
Yeah, I think I was finding things outside of the sport. The thing I was really concentrated on obviously was my sport, right? Like,
Mhm.
because I'm spending like 40 hours a week on a like full-time job on college basketball. And on top of that, I have, some of the best teammates in the world, that I'm competing against and then I have Tara Vanderveer as at the helm. So I think that a lot of what I was really trying to do was do things that I was really passionate about outside of the sport that I was actually doing, so that I could find joy and find happiness outside of just basketball. 'Cause then it gave me a larger purpose, and then that larger purpose allowed me to like just go out there and be like, this is another fun thing that I get to do. And then with that, like, there were games where I didn't play a lot, right? So what I would do is in the hallway, I would go get the bike, I would roll the bike out into the hallway where it was like in between our locker room and the court, and I would bike for however long I thought I should play for. And
Mhm.
Mm.
so I felt like putting in the work, and going to practice and doing all of the things that I felt like I I could do to set myself up allowed me to like kind of release the fact that like it wasn't going the way I wanted it to. And that helped me believe that it would work out. So I think that like just trusting in the process, trusting in the fact that like, I'm doing everything that I can in order to be out here. And sacrificing what I can and controlling the things I can control would allow me and set myself up for success in the long run. Which ultimately ended up doing that. It helped me get to shape. Helped me, I wasn't like I was never really the, a chubby kid. But I definitely leaned out and slimmed out and got more fit, got, you know, healthier throughout that entire experience, mentally and also physically. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think I just, at the end of my career, I just peaked kind of like at the right time. So yeah, fortunately, there was no like real plateau, um, at the end there. So yeah, it was just a great, experience all in all.
Yeah.
So
You
gratitude
mentioned
was a huge part of it.
Yeah.
that's cool. I like how you balanced all those things, and I love the bike story because I think
Mhm.
that's just
Um,
really intentional. That's being really intentional about your recovery, and not you could have been feeling sorry for yourself or acting a certain way, but and I think it also spoke to the folks and your teammates around you, your coaches around you, to say, hey, listen, you're engaged and intentional about the way you want to get better. Um, you mentioned something 40 hours a week. Unpack that a little bit for the aspiring, people that are trying to be great at anything, whether you're trying to be great at a sport, or tell us a little bit about those 40 hours.
yeah, so pretty much like college college basketball, especially because it's the longest season out of any of the seasons. I mean, football is probably comparable. Just meaning like from game one to last game of the
Hmm.
season. Fortunately, we were going really deep into the season every season. So we were,
Stop bragging. Stop,
basically,
stop bragging. Stop bragging.
yeah. So we were going like October all the way to April, right? So that's a really long season. We didn't have like Thanksgiving. We didn't have winter break. We didn't have, spring break. We could have had spring break, but we didn't, fortunately. So, and then also Stanford's on quarter systems. So the quarters are changing so quickly.
Hmm.
So you're always like starting a class and taking a final, starting a class and taking a final, which is great. But the year goes by super fast. And so pretty much like my classes, I could structure my classes from Monday to Friday. I rarely had classes on Monday and Friday. I tried to keep those classes, as trying not to have classes on Monday and Friday. So
Hmm.
my Tuesday through Thursday were like more heavy packed with classes. So a lot of times on Friday we have the game. So my Friday was totally focused on the game. We watched when we go into practice. Obviously we have to get taped, we have treatment or whatever before. Then after that, we're, you know, getting ready for practice. That everyone does their thing different. So, I might be getting on a bike or doing band work for my knees or something like that because I was a little bit older on my team. But some people are shooting, some people are, are just talking with coaches and stuff like that. We go into film for 30 minutes, basically. Then we get out into the court. We go through warm-ups. We have practice for 3 hours. Then we have treatment after. Then after treatment, then you're going into dinner. If you choose to, with the team or, by yourself, or some people have classes immediately after. I was an art student, so pretty much like my classes were 3 hour blocks, like a 3 hour class, and then I would have studio time like later after practice, if I wanted to, or on the weekends, or I'd stay up super late. So I had access to my studio 24/7. Um, so yeah, so a lot of my stuff was I pretty much figured out a whole system of like being able to uh, cater and turn my college experience into exactly what I wanted it to be. So
Hmm.
when my classes were when obviously practices in practices, but uh, I really made it personal to myself and what I felt like was going to help me be successful both academically and athletically. So
It's great.
um, yeah, it's a full thing.
Yeah.
Especially during COVID, it changed a lot, like our structure and our schedule. 'Cause we played on the road for 9 weeks. So during that time, we were on campus. So we would travel. Typically, our travel was on a Friday or on a Thursday. We play on a Friday. travel Saturday, play Sunday, travel back. During COVID, it was travel Tuesday, practice all week at wherever we were playing. Let's say it's Washington State. We'd be at Washington State all week, and then play Friday, then travel on Saturday, then play a Sunday, then travel back, uh, stay at a hotel, then travel to Oakland, or not travel to Oakland, but travel to Santa Clara because that's where the Warriors were playing their G League. We'd practice all week at the G League, and then same thing, watch and repeat over and over again.
Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's
lots
wild,
of
man.
travel.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, go ahead. I mean, like, I think that like what's so interesting is like you mentioned Tara, and for those that don't know, Tara Vanderveer was the head coach of Stanford basketball while Anna was there. She recently retired, and now Kate, who Anna mentions assistant coach, is now the head coach. But Tara is one of the greatest coaches of all time, men's and women. I think during her time, she took over as the winningest basketball coach in history. Gino Oriema might have passed her recently. I'm not sure, and you probably know, but what's so fascinating is like you guys, like you mentioned, you guys had a lot of really, really great teams that were going late into the season. I think maybe of your 6 years, 4 Final Fours in total,
4 Final Fours.
4 Final Fours and one national championship. And that 2021 team won the championship, right? And you had a lot of great players, a lot of great leadership, et cetera. What made that team different than the others that didn't quite hold up the trophy or put the net over their neck at the end of the year?
Yeah, every team had really great leaders. There wasn't, a team that lacked great leadership. I think that specific year we had really put together a really great group of just individuals, which then, our collective, got better. Um, Obviously we weren't all together because of COVID, so we were doing remote meetings. So the captains were Alyssa Jerome and Kiana Williams and myself. And so basically what we did was we were like, we're going to have meetings all throughout the week as if we were having practice. We're going to, all three of us were going to be in every single meeting. And then everyone else, they would have a meeting once a week, and then we'd have a larger team meeting. So we were in like maybe 4 or 5 meetings a week. And then Alyssa and Kiana and I would talk on the phone and catch up about kind of what we would make the meetings about, how we would switch people around and stuff like that. And I think that it was really just like taking ownership of the team versus like the coach telling us how exactly things were going to be done, how we were going to do it. We were really just trying to take advantage of the opportunity, that we didn't really know that we would have, for the entire season, and just trying to make the best out of it. So our concept during the summer was widen the gap. And so that was kind of like, there's some really great teams and there's space in between each, and we were going to widen the gap between us and everyone else. And that was really going to be like us focusing on ourselves and the fact that people had to play us. It wasn't that we were going in, we were going to play, X team. It was really like people were going to come and they're going to have to put their best game against us every single time. Which we lost some games obviously during that season that I really wish that we hadn't lost. We lost to Colorado, we lost to UCLA, and those were back-to-back games. And we were nearing the end of our season, and we really wanted to go undefeated in the Pac-12. Unfortunately, we didn't that season. The next season, we ended up going undefeated in the Pac-12. But that game was tough. I remember I made a pass, went in the other direction, and they scored off of it. And I remember standing and like we were in Boulder, and so I was standing in I was crying after that game so hard. I stood out on the court after that game, and I was like, I'm never getting into a situation like this ever again, where losing is going to feel like this. We played UCLA. I don't think I played very much in the UCLA game for whatever reason, matchups or whatever, but that was the last time we lost that season. So that was also a great feeling. So yeah.
After you lost those 2 games, you remember how you mentioned how you responded. Do you remember how your coach responded?
Oh, yes. After we lost to Colorado, we were practicing in Santa Clara, and we played UCLA at the G League facility. And We were playing in a high school gym. There were no lights. We practiced with no lights on. And that's not because Tara turned off the lights. It was because there's some power in the gym, and Tara was like, "We're still practicing. I'm not missing a practice." And reasonably run when you don't win the ball, right? So like if
Right.
there's an award and the other team gets it, so like if another team shoots and they get the ball, defense is run. We didn't box out. So yeah, we pretty much ran for everything. Whether we got the ball or didn't get the ball, each team was running. No matter if you scored or didn't score, we were running for something. And you know, it was pretty much like there's no reason why you shouldn't be running hard because we're in a high school gym. This gym is shorter. Like, you should be making shots. Basket's closer.
Mm,
Like, so yeah, that was a really hard week of practice for sure. And then we
yeah.
went out and we lost to UCLA. And then after that, we didn't lose again. Um, and very happy.
Still running. Did you do a lot of running after that after that UCLA game too, or was it more
No,
like
I think she felt like we learned our lesson in that game.
okay,
Like that was different than the
yep,
CNU game. I think that kind of after that, we all knew that like we had already missed our goal of going undefeated in
mm,
the Pac-12. So the next thing that we could do is win Pac-12 championship, and then go into
mm,
the final four. Best foot forward. That season, we went to the final four, and I think we were losing in the Elite Eight, and then turned it around in the final four, and then we're in the national championship game, and that barely happened. But I think it was through those working it out through those that CU game and then the UCLA game that allowed us, to be prepared for that. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Like observing the Stanford women's basketball program during that era, and kind of like the pre-era, because obviously I started paying attention to Stanford women's basketball when you committed there back in like 2000 whatever 13 or whatever it was, right? And you notice that like not every place, not every job or career or company is perfect for everybody, even though the company might be great. Not every coach is fit for every player, et cetera. Not every boss is good for an employee. And so you see young women come in and out of any program, and those no different than Stanford. And Tara is a special legacy, right? And had her way, and has and had her way of doing business, if you will, right? Like what was it like playing for her, and then what type of mental toughness was demanded by being a part of that program, as from your perspective?
being at Stanford is unique, because everyone is at a really high caliber, academically and then also athletically.
Hmm.
Anyone could have been playing anywhere and then been the starter or the star of their team. Anyone that was sitting on our bench could have been starting anywhere else, like literally anywhere else.
Yeah.
And so I think that there was a lot of being able to be flexible. Tara's saying was always the best ability is availability. So staying healthy, all those things. She had so many Tarisms, like so many
Yeah. Yeah.
things that she had
Yeah.
said over time that still made sense long after it was said the first time,
Yeah.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mm,
And I think that it's a brand. It's a thing, like it's a culture. It's definitely a lot of like there's a lot of expectation for greatness, uh, and really nothing less than that. There wasn't really many seasons that we would go into where at the top of the season we're not talking about playing in a national championship game during the
Yeah.
time I was there,
Yeah.
you know. And so we're always constantly talking about what it is that we wanted. And it's kind of like that saying, I think Denzel Washington says it actually, but he's always talking about like greatness sees greatness before it happens.
Hmm.
mm,
And I think a lot of that is like talking about the goals that you have and then just creating process goals along the way that help you get to that. A lot of times you don't meet a lot of the process goals, you don't get all of them, but trying to hit as many of them as possible allows you to set yourself up for success, down the road, which is, kind of what I took about it personally.
Hmm.
Um, I remember when I was kind of going through that transition of like injured to healthy, uh, we met with coaches and or whatever, and I wrote out a piece of paper that I kept in my locker. But uh, she, everything that was goal oriented for me was about everyone else. So I was like, I want to make Kiana Williams better, just by going after her every day. I'm gonna guard her as much as I possibly can. I want to make Lexi better. I want to make Alexa better. I want to make, just as many people around me as better than who they were at the top of the season. I tried to win every single sprint that I could, and stuff like that. So I feel like a lot of the things was like, especially at the end of our career, Char did this thing where we would have like a list of everyone on the team. It would be on this whiteboard, and it would be like green and red. And like you would be in the red or you'd be in the green, and you never want to be in the red. So if you're in the green, you're on the white team. If you're in the red, you're on the red team. And so you always want to be on the white team if it works out, because that's the team that Tara is coaching. And then if you're on the red team, then that's who Kate or one of the assistants is coaching.
Mm.
Better than on the white team, then you're starting, or you're the sixth man or seventh man. And then if you're on the red team, then you're probably a scout player, or you are a starter that's helping the red team. Whether or like you're a point, there's always 2 point guards that were separated from each other. So people who could run offense or something like that. But I think that it was just healthy competition. It's similar to Stanford, as as a university. It's competitive, but it's really about collaboration more than anything else. It's really about just making everyone else around you better, and everything. So, fortunately, I was playing against the best team every single day.
Right,
Like I
right,
wasn't
right. In
playing the
practice,
best team on Friday or Sunday. I was
that's
playing the
right.
best team at practice. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's
I
really
love that.
cool. Yeah, yeah, and just the way you approach that in terms of, as a 21-year-old, 22-year-old, whatever it was at the time, is to say I'm going to make my teammates better and be really focused on that. I don't know if there's a lot of young athletes that do that, and when you look at the collective of what happened as a result of that, and I'm sure there were other people on the team that were doing other things too that were very unique, and to help the team collectively win a national championship is really really cool. You mentioned something that is really standing out to me a couple times in a couple different ways, but essentially what you learned in sports and how you're applying it in life and now your career. Um, you look at how, and I don't think the NIL was not a thing when you were playing, right? You just missed it. Is that correct?
Yeah, it was there the last 2 seasons,
Okay.
like really the last season.
Yep.
So yeah, really the last season,
So
my
just
sixth year.
last season, how and what advice and first of all, what are your thoughts around NIL, and then what advice would you have for young athletes, in a position to where they are becoming a business very early on in their careers?
Yeah. I mean, generally speaking, I think you're a business whether you're making money or you're not making money. You're a brand. You represent something larger than yourself all the
Mhm.
time. So, I think that NIL definitely benefits a smaller group of people than it benefits a larger group of people. In significant ways. Like, some players are going to make millions and millions of dollars, and some players are going to make $100 here, $100 there.
Mhm.
Um, Honestly, like, I think that it's a really great opportunity for whoever can benefit from it. So I think that you should definitely utilize it as much as possible. But I think in the grand scheme of things, like, whether it's at college level, whether you leave college and you go be a professional anywhere, I think the whole point is still a learning experience the entire time. Like how you handle NIL, how you handle being a teammate, because a lot of times the people who are making money, they're making it because their team is doing really well. And so finding ways of like giving back, not necessarily to your teammates or anything like that, but finding ways of just like still making the sport a better sport.
Mhm.
I still think that like being the best athlete that you can possibly be is still really should be the longer term goal.
Mhm.
Giving so yeah, I mean, I think that players benefiting from it is great.
Yep.
Um, I think there's a lot of people who didn't benefit from it that really paved the way for a lot of those players now to make money like that. So
Yeah.
I still think that the players that are current now in order for the future generations to make money and to continue. And a lot of the success that we're having now in sport is to kind of give back as
Yeah.
well. So
Yeah.
uh, yeah.
DJ, I was on the NCAA, football game in 2005. I haven't gotten paid yet. So wait
Yeah.
for my check. Wait for my check. The
I
funny
don't
thing is,
remember that.
yeah, but you didn't play that game back then. You know what I mean? I know you didn't know anything about football back then. You weren't paying attention back then. You know what I mean? Like it was just all
That's
basketball.
great.
But
That's true.
yeah,
That's
I have
true.
to wait for my check. And that the number 11 looked just like me too. It was, so I'm like, I
Really?
want my cash.
Okay.
Yeah, I want my cash. No, but
That's
that's
great.
interesting,
I love that.
Anna, regarding NIL because I think it's changing a lot of. Obviously, it's changing the landscape of recruiting, right? For somebody like Tara, even who'd been coaching for like 40 years, with a certain strategy and approach towards recruiting, I can imagine if she was still kind of coaching today, it'd be a massive change for her approach in the recruiting game and having to be prepared for that. We've seen coaches kind of sunset and around this time because it's not something they're willing to be a part of or know
Mm.
how to. It's not part of their skill set or whatever it might be. But so it's really interesting. It'll be interesting to see how it impacts Stanford University, given like who they are, like from a brand perspective of Stanford and what they expect from students, and because that always kind of it's amazing what they've been able to do from an athletic program perspective because of their academic standards. Yet they can still put together like one of the best athletic programs across all sports in the world. So it'll just be interesting to see like how certain universities handle that, right? And how over time, the cream comes to the crop relative to how NIL is kind of evolving. So it's really
Mhm.
cool.
Mhm.
I guess as we close, what do you like? Tell people what you're doing now. You know what I mean? Like, because I know that what I've noticed about college athletes is when it's all done, and no matter what, it ends fast. You know what I mean? Because you were playing in a Final Four in your last game, right? And you're expecting to go play in the national championship, win that thing. So like,
Yep.
or even if you're not in the tournament, right? Whatever it might be, like it ends. Like even though it's coming, it ends like automatically, and there's like this it's like this. It's tough to even like reconcile with that. And
Mm.
so the transition from athlete to you know corporate athlete, right, to the next journey can be tough on people. Like, maybe tell us a little bit what you're doing now, and like, how did you handle that transition, or how are you handling it even still?
Yeah. So my last game was the Final Four game. We played against UConn, and the company I was working with, Ryan Kennedy, one of the ladies I was working with on the strategy team, she sent me a clip of me running off the court. And I think I was one of the first people to run off the court. And I had my head down, and I'm like walking off the court, and I immediately took my head up, and I just run off the court, and I think I smiled. Uh, and I think that she sent that to me, and she was like, "This is like one of the coolest things I've ever seen ever."
Mm.
Like, because I think that it was just like, I knew in that second, like, there's literally no more basketball like at college level with this team that I could possibly play. And my final 2 years were my favorite 2 years at Stanford for
Yeah,
sure,
That's
yeah,
cool.
playing wise. But I think that I gave it all of my energy, and I gave it absolutely everything that I possibly could, and because of that, I knew I could walk away from it and feel good about it. So
yeah,
I didn't feel like I left anything in the tank. I didn't feel like you know there was some like untapped thing that I didn't, release or something like that. I
Mm.
think uh because I gave it my all, I was cool with it. So yeah, what I do now, I work on 3 brands. So Russell's brand. I kind of like work on some strategy there and kind of leading a lot of the teams there, which is great. And it's kind of fun. I'm living in LA. I still train all the time. I started running marathons uh like 2 years ago. So I started long distance running, which a lot of that has to do with competing and really within myself, not really against anyone else, but really against the clock, to be honest.
Yeah.
But yeah. And just kind of like progressively getting better. I think running is like the one sport where you either are or you aren't. So like, I think it's one of those things that like when you're running, you can see yourself getting better, and when you aren't running, you know that you're in the same spot. So it's a
hmm
very easy thing to spot for progress.
yeah,
I do miss training with like a larger group of people, but I think that I've met so many people since college within like the health and wellness industry that are some of my favorite people, like, in the world. So yeah, I think that that's kind of what I'm doing now. I enjoy it a lot. I travel a lot. I work from home. I work remotely, so I'm constantly in somewhere new or doing something. So yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
trying to, hey, Harry, I'm trying to get abs like your sister, man. Trying to get abs like
You
that,
should
man.
be
Hey,
putting,
I've
Yeah,
you
seen
be
it.
putting them
I've
abs
pretty
seen
on
it
much
on
my
the,
social
regimen
I've
media.
is
seen
around
it
my
on the
abs.
gram, bro. I've seen it on the gram.
Yeah, she be
Yeah.
putting their abs on social media. You know,
Yeah.
we're just jealous. That's all that
Yeah.
really
That's
is.
it. That's it. That's
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
Listen, that's
One
it.
one day I'll release the regimen for the
Yeah,
abs.
well, you know what? You got so my daughters might will be very interested in that because they're always talking about how they can get better
Yeah.
abs. So yeah,
Yeah, it's just side bends every day. Do
that's
side
it.
Yeah.
All
bends.
right.
Plank,
Okay.
you use some
Yeah.
plank,
You see,
you plank too? No?
I don't really do too
That's
many
not what side
planks. I
bends are.
mostly work on the obliques. Working
Okay.
on the
okay.
obliques is what shows the abs, really, to be
Yeah.
honest, and
Okay.
the lower abs. Everyone has the top two.
Yeah.
You gotta have the bottom.
Yeah.
Got you.
Send me that plan. Send me that ad plan. You know what I mean? Some of that, just text
She
that
said.
over
She
to me.
said she not, man. She said that. She said she's
I
holding
think the
on to that
running
one.
joke is that everyone's grandmother has the top two abs, so it's not really impressive if you have the top two. You gotta get the bottom ones
Get the bottom
and
two
the
there. That's
side
a good
ones.
takeaway. That's a good
Why do I feel like,
takeaway.
why do I feel like you're
Uh,
talking directly to me? I don't know. I don't like
I mean, I am looking at you, the camera, so
it.
I
Yeah.
am
That's
talking to you.
great. Oh
Well,
man. Can I
um,
can I
and
ask can I ask a selfish question here real
That's
quick
it.
since I got two of the Wilsons on. You mentioned your father, growing up and your connection with him with basketball. Is there one lesson that stands out that you learned from your dad?
Yeah, well, actually, Harry sent it to me. It was actually our dad's handwriting. It's kind of like his takeaway from college, but it was really like the thorns of life. I think that's like, kind of like you can't really go through a beautiful life or have a really great experience without, missteps or things that kind of like poke you in the side
Mm,
or, things that, aren't always like great, I think that that's really like the biggest takeaway from like, my dad in terms of things. I think, I lost, our dad when I was much younger. So I think like getting takeaways is really like reflection on, kind of what the situation was now that I'm an adult.
yeah,
Uh, so yeah.
that's cool.
well, I mean, I think part of that, the quote, and we'll have to maybe post it somewhere in the notes of this thing, but he talks about the thorns of life, and then he also mentioned like the how critical it is to have an inner constitution, right? And meaning, a set of values, a standard, encouraging your conviction, right? The willingness to endure all these different things, right? Because the thorns of life it's not a if, it's a when, right? There's thorns everywhere, right? And they're going to be there. And so, only thing to combat that is this inner constitution that he talked about. And so, I think that you proved that. You proved that through your 27 years of life, and certainly in that 6-year period or so of being your time at Stanford. But I think the cool thing for you is that as we say in a cliche way, the best is ahead for you. You know what I mean? So we're just looking forward to seeing what you do next. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Great.
Also,
Now,
total side note. I just started working with that startup, the CGM Sports, that is trying to like create AI, like basically add some AI to kind of the recruiting process in
Mhm.
terms of giving like college students access to like college athletes who are currently in like the top athletes of the sport and
Mhm.
allowing them to have like, automatic conversations to learn more about the NIL process and then also the college recruiting process so that there's a little bit more variety than kind of like what happens when you normally get recruited, which is when you like kind of talk to a coach and talk to a
Mhm.
few players from that specific team um, because the landscape has changed so drastically. So I think that would be really interesting too. That's something another project that I'm working on
Oh,
that's
so
that's
honestly
really
been
cool.
really, really, really cool. So
yeah,
yeah.
that's cool.
That's awesome. Good
Well,
stuff.
listen, Anna, we appreciate you coming. Maybe, hopefully, we'll get to have you on again and hear more about what's going on. I think that your journey in some of these things, some of those nuggets you dropped, right, about like in times of like struggle or you know um, or when even things aren't going right, is like setting yourself up for like kind of simulating success, right? You know, whether it be pulling the bike in and biking the amount of minutes you think you should play, right? Or putting a lot of investment in the challenge of like making, you know, those teammates, you know, and your people that you work with or whatever it might be for people listening, like making them better, that which kind of rises all tides. These things are really, really important, right? And
The best
Mhm.
ability is availability. Love that
yeah,
one too.
yeah,
Yeah, no
yeah,
question.
yeah, that's true. So I mean, so this is good stuff, and I knew you would have some dimes to drop. So thanks for
Yeah,
joining us. Appreciate you.
Yeah,
of
thank
course.
you.
Anytime.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Anytime.
Well, listen, thanks you for for the audience listening. This is Anna Wilson, little sister. And check her out. She's on social media, etc. She's doing some big things. And remember, you don't have to be sick to get better.